seizure of weapons from the homes of law-abiding American citizens.
In areas that are poor, mostly minority, there's a mass shooting.
A critical and urgent issue, gun violence in America. We're here because gun violence is destroying communities.
Congress wants to change the law and come up with a new interpretation, then ATF will follow that new interpretation.
Breaking news, President Biden unveils groundbreaking measures in national arm control. Explore the implications and controversy surrounding this pivotal announcement in the battle for arms regulation. The Armed Violence Prevention Office. President Biden has recently announced the creation of the first ever White House Office of Armed Violence Prevention through an executive order. This move is aligned with the administration's commitment to address the critical issue of armed violence in the United States. The new office will be established under the bipartisan Safer Communities Act, a piece of legislation that emerged in response to calls for national arm control measures after a tragic incident in New Uvalde. However, this development has sparked intense debate, particularly among proponents and critics of the Second Amendment. Some argue that the creation of an executive office focused on armed violence prevention may potentially infringe upon individuals' Second Amendment rights. Critics assert that such an office could overstep constitutional boundaries, warranting scrutiny and concern.
No guns were lost. They were stolen by an individual who's now in prison.
Or licensed security officer shall possess a firearm.
And of course, we've got a lot of criticism over this. So why is it not a machine gun?
The bipartisan Safer Communities Act, which served as the basis for this new initiative, encompasses various provisions. Notably, it includes measures to increase background checks for individuals aged 18 to 21 and addresses federal funding for red flag laws. This legislation aims to incentivize states with existing red flag laws to potentially bolster their implementation, while also encouraging states without such laws to adopt them. In response to the act, the ATF has introduced new rules, including a regulation that could effectively establish a nationwide restriction on private party transactions. This would impact how private individuals engage in armed transactions, potentially necessitating additional federal licenses. The Biden administration's approach reflects a concerted effort to utilize executive authority and legislative measures to tackle armed violence. It aims to strike a balance between public safety concerns and constitutional rights. The creation of the Armed Violence Prevention Office signifies a commitment to address a critical issue facing the nation, but it also raises questions about the potential implications for Second Amendment rights and the broader conversation on arm control. As this new office takes shape and implements its policies, it will be crucial to monitor its impact on both armed violence prevention efforts and the protection of individual rights. Additionally, the broader conversation surrounding arm control in the U.S. is likely to evolve in response to these recent developments, making it a topic of continued significance in both political and public discourse.
Ban assault weapons. Ban them again. Do it now. Enough. Do something.
Do any of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle give a whit about separation of powers?
Living in Albuquerque and Bernalillo County, I believe that you're safer for the next 30 days.
Connecticut delegation, which is incredible. I think on this issue and many others, you're the best delegation in the United States.
Americans have the fundamental right to keep and bear arms that shall not be infringed.
Biden administration's action. The recent developments surrounding arm control measures in the U.S. have ignited passionate debates and discussions across the nation. At the heart of this debate is the attempt to establish what proponents refer to as universal background checks. To understand the context of this ongoing issue, we'll break down the key elements and actions involved, including the Biden administration's role in these developments. One crucial aspect of this debate is the effort to regulate private party transactions of arms. Currently, federal arm licensees are required to conduct background checks on buyers. However, private individuals selling arms may not be subject to the same requirements. Advocates for stricter arm control measures view this as a significant loophole that needs to be addressed. They argue that universal background checks would help prevent individuals with criminal histories or mental health issues from acquiring arms through private sales. To address this, lawmakers have attempted to pass legislation such as the bipartisan Safer Communities Act. This legislation aims to mandate background checks for private party transactions, effectively closing the perceived loophole. However, this legislation has faced resistance in Congress, primarily from lawmakers who argue that it infringes on Second Amendment rights. In response to the legislative gridlock, the Biden administration has taken executive action. They are leveraging the bipartisan Safer Communities Act to establish a federal agency known as the Armed Violence Prevention Office. This office, situated under the Department of Justice, will be responsible for addressing various aspects of armed violence prevention. The Armed Violence Prevention Office will be overseen by Vice President Kamala Harris, a former Attorney General of California who has been involved in armed control efforts at the state level.
For God's sake, America already has more guns than people. How many guns do we need until everybody is safe?
If you are committing a crime in Bernalillo County and we catch you, we're going to force you to get treatment through the criminal justice system.
Inventing the pistol stabilizing brace to help his friend, a disabled combat veteran, at the shooting range.
Could lose the ability to use these tools and as a result may not be able to operate their firearm.
You gave testimony that the brave ATF agents are the ones showing up at 2 in the morning after a burglary.
Stephanie Feldman, a longtime policy advisor to President Biden, will lead the office. Feldman has played a pivotal role in shaping the administration's stance on arm control. The office will also include other key figures, such as Greg Jackson, the executive director of the Community Justice Action Fund, and Rob Wilcox, a senior director at Everytown for Armed Safety. These individuals have extensive backgrounds in advocating for armed control measures. The primary goal of this federal office is to expedite the bipartisan Safer Communities Act and explore potential executive actions to strengthen arm control. It will coordinate efforts with various organizations, including those providing assistance to communities affected by armed violence. The office aims to operate similarly to FEMA, offering relief and support in the aftermath of arm-related incidents. Furthermore, the office seeks to expand state and local coalitions that support stricter armed control measures. This effort involves collaborating with anti-armed states and communities, aligning with their goals and initiatives. While proponents argue that these actions are necessary to curb armed violence, opponents raise concerns about the potential infringement on Second Amendment rights. The debate over arm control remains a contentious issue with passionate arguments on both sides. Indecision. The establishment of the Armed Violence Prevention Office represents the Biden administration's commitment to addressing armed violence through executive action and leveraging existing legislative efforts. The outcome of these actions will likely continue to spark debates and legal challenges surrounding the Second Amendment and the balance between armed control and individual rights.
This rule turns law-abiding gun owners into felons is a result of unelected bureaucrats
are demonstrating that blind loyalty to Speaker Dade Phelan is more important than upholding their oath of office.
I'm not safe. And what are you going to do about it? I'm terrified in my own neighborhood.
Might end up being a message amendment because the President of the United States will almost assuredly veto it.
Concerns over armed control. The recent announcement by President Biden regarding the establishment of an Armed Violence Prevention Office and the potential implications for armed control in the U.S. has sparked significant debate and concern among Second Amendment advocates. This new office, which will operate under the DOJ and be overseen by Kamala Harris, aims to address issues related to armed violence and promote armed control measures at the federal level. While the specific details of the office's activities are yet to be fully revealed, there are several key aspects and concerns worth exploring. One of the primary concerns surrounding the new Armed Violence Prevention Office is its potential to bypass congressional oversight and enact armed control measures through executive action. President Biden mentioned during the announcement that they intend to expedite the usage of the bipartisan Safer Communities Act. This suggests that the administration may leverage the office to sidestep Congress and implement armed control measures more swiftly. By doing so, they could circumvent the legislative process and enact restrictions on arms, including so-called assault arms and large-capacity mags, without congressional approval. Additionally, the new office is expected to coordinate with various federal agencies, including the ATF and the Department of the Treasury. This coordination could lead to the creation of new regulations and rules that affect arm owners and the arms industry. Recent examples of such regulations include rules related to pistol braces, unfinished frames and receivers, and private party transactions.
are ones where, in fact, it's most likely that they should be bringing the highest and mandatory minimum.
Defund the police, and then they want to take our Second Amendment right to defend ourselves.
That suspension does not apply to any private property.
Details of the law, but folks, listen at home. Here's a quick summary of what this law is doing. It's already allowing.
The ATF has demonstrated its willingness to take aggressive actions in interpreting and enforcing existing regulations, and the Armed Violence Prevention Office could provide additional momentum for such actions. Another concerning aspect is the potential expansion of state and local coalitions that support arm control measures. While many states have enacted their own arm control laws in the absence of federal action, the new office could provide resources and support to anti-armed states and communities. This could lead to the proliferation of stricter arm control measures at the state and local levels, further restricting the rights of arm owners. Furthermore, President Biden emphasized the need to provide relief and support to areas affected by armed violence, likening the office's role to that of FEMA. While addressing the aftermath of armed violence is crucial, the concern arises from how this relief and support will be administered and whether it will be tied to increased arm control measures. Using such incidents to push for stricter regulations could exploit tragic events for political gain. In summary, the establishment of the Armed Violence Prevention Office has raised concerns among Second Amendment advocates due to its potential to expedite armed control measures through executive action, coordinate with federal agencies to create new regulations, and expand state and local coalitions supporting arm control. While the office's specific actions and initiatives remain to be seen, its existence signals the Biden administration's commitment to advancing arm control at the federal level, which could have far-reaching implications for arm owners and the arms industry.
Because I hope we'll do more. Because the city of Indianapolis has higher murder rates than the city of Chicago.
That you said that all assault weapons should be banned. Is that a fair statement?
Conventional wisdom was we would never get any Republicans to support gun legislation, period.
An escalation in violence perpetrated with guns, particularly among our young people, in a manner that I have never seen before.
As debates over armed control continue, it is crucial for stakeholders to remain vigilant and engaged in discussions surrounding Second Amendment rights and regulations. That's all for this video, folks. Thank you so much for watching today, and we will see you next time.